Hi, I'm Brittany Hall, one of the program coordinators at UConn Solid Ground, and we are here talking to Indu about wash station setups. So Indu, can you start out by telling me who you are and what your role is at UConn Extension?
I'm Indu Upadhyaya. I'm a food safety extension specialist with UConn Extension. I conduct outreach and training on produce safety and meat and poultry safety across the state of Connecticut. I teach the produce safety grower course designed by Produce Safety Alliance to assist farmers to comply and understand the produce safety rule.
So we've been talking with farmers about the role of DIY on their farms, so do-it-yourself projects, and how they've built their wash stations to handle, the produce that comes in for markets, CSA, and wholesale. And we've seen lots of great things, like including the washing machine turned greens spinner, and that greens bubblers, like all different kinds of things that folks are doing on their farms. So what are some of the DIY projects you've come across that farmers are using?
Farmers are very creative when it comes to engineering a wash station for their farms on a low budget. I have seen outdoor wash stations that could be just a wooden or steel table with hose and pipe of clean water to manually wash, or a four-legged hollow table with hardware cloth that looks like a steel gauze, and a sink connected to a water line, or simple lumbar frames with plastic perforated bench tops and plastic perforated spray tables. The washing machine turned green spinner that was initially suggested and redesigned by the University of Vermont, that has been used indoors as well. We have seen a few of them in Connecticut and Massachusetts. Research is still ongoing to determine their efficacy. On the more sophisticated end, I have seen farmers build their own elaborate hoop houses that contain both packing and washing areas. And these are also more permanent options, especially when you're starting out and thinking about having a solid infrastructure for your farm. We have seen those as well.
What are some of the more common food safety mistakes you are seeing that beginning farmers or farmers in general are making in their wash pack setups?
Most commonly, we have noticed issues with rodent populations near wash stations due to debris collection or bird droppings that can easily be there, or they cannot be immediately cleaned. So I try to encourage farmers to have wash stations set up indoors or in an enclosed area with walls that are covered with washable material. But as long as you're able to keep the area clean, it's okay to have it outdoors. Another common mistake that farmers do is not have appropriate drainage for their wash water. It would help to cement the floor and make sure to have side drainage with a slope, or have a floor that can be easily maintained. Most importantly, pooling water is definitely an issue near wash stations, as it can harbor the bacteria, and there can be buildup of biofilms, especially of Listeria, which is a major foodborne pathogen. We have also seen that many farmers use wood. We do suggest using stainless steel material for tables and sinks. Although so far wood is allowed by the produce safety rule, it isn't easy to disinfect, and same is the case with any other material that is absorbent or rusting. So those materials can also pose risks. We've been trying to tell farmers, encourage them to use more of steel and plastic. We have seen other things that we have seen are broken glass. Sometimes when you're using if you're not using light fixtures, then bulb breakage can cause the glass to fall down on the wash sink or on the produce itself. So that's one thing we encourage: have light fixtures. Many times we have also seen hoses that are on the floor. This can cause contamination of water and the produce. So avoid any hoses or other equipment on the floor. So these are some of the common mistakes we see, and we try to guide the farmers on how to avoid them.
So what should farmers be keeping in mind if they're repurposing an item like a washing machine, or buying something used from another farm or someone else, like sinks or tables? What specific ways should they be planning to sterilize these things that they're bringing into the operation?
Yes, if you are repurposing material, then make sure that it's an easy to wash and sterilize material as much as possible. For example, if you're using a washing machine, then make sure you're following step-by-step procedures for redesigning it. This includes use of plastic baskets in a manner that you can reach the nooks and crevices so that you can wash and sterilize it. The tables and sinks should have a good fit as well. That is, if you're using retrofitting equipment, then you should have no harbor sites, which are like, safe haven for bacteria, and there can be bacterial biofilms developing there. So preferably have plastic or steel, easy to wash material, like I mentioned earlier. If you're using muck buckets or dairy bulk tanks or utility sinks, make sure they're all properly connected to the water, and that you're using accessories to ensure that the whole structure is stable. A lot of this information can be found on the University of Vermont page. They have an agriculture engineering for produce safety resource, which is really, really valuable. With respect to cleaning and sanitizing the repurposed and purposed equipment, you need to clean the surface first. We try to tell farmers that just don't go spray the chlorine, because that's not cleaning. You have to clean first and then sanitize. Cleaning includes scrubbing as well. For sanitizing, you can use chlorine products. They are most cost effective, but they're also sometimes misused on farms, because you cannot use household bleach as a sanitizer. You need to have food contact or food grade sanitizer for your harvest containers, tables, not just your produce wash water alone. The PSA Alliance has a germicidal bleach, which is very similar to the household bleach, but it has no filler, no fragrance, no additive. So it's really safe for food contact surfaces. There is a whole Excel sheet of sanitizers that they can use available at PSA Alliance, and that's a resource as well. And like with any chemical that you use, you need to monitor the concentration, pH, turbidity as and when required. So those are some of the ways to clean and sanitize repurposed equipment.
So food safety is obviously important when you're handling items that are going to be sold to the public. What are some of the most important things you want farmers to keep in mind when they are building their wash stations?
Primarily, we would like to see that the wash station is clean and sanitized. It should, especially after every session. What we don't want to see is you have constant rodent population near wash station, because there are a lot of debris that you're not cleaning out, or there are bird droppings that cannot be easily cleaned. Animal droppings do contain human pathogens, and any contact is definitely a food safety risk. And the other important thing to consider is the flow of people. How do you and others move into and through the wash and pack area? If it is an enclosed building, then do you have enough doors to allow proper efficient movement in and out of the space? That's very important. More recently, the agricultural water rule has revised some guidelines for water testing requirements, but the main focus is to use clean and pathogen-free water to wash the produce and discard any used water correctly to meet food safety requirements. For a wash station, the water should have no generic E. coli, and hence you need to always test your water regularly as indicated in the rule. Most importantly, have good workplace sanitation practices in place, have a separate hand wash station, clean and disinfect surfaces, including the floor, equipment, sinks, before and after each session. All containers and other surfaces used even for transporting produce to and from the wash station should be cleaned and sanitized before and after use. Same thing for storage, and especially for the outdoor wash stations, make sure you cover the area so that you reduce any kind of cross-contamination when not in use. So I think those are some of the things we'd like to see. To start with a positive mindset is very important. We want the farmer to think of the operation as their own home and how clean they would like it to be. We don't want our friends and family to fall sick from what we provide them. Similarly, every step that we take in the operation should also we should be able to maintain cleanliness and proper food safety practices to ensure that the safe product is being provided to the customers as well. I would highly recommend attending the Produce Safety Grower course to anyone who wants to grow fresh produce, regardless of a federal inspection. This course offers a comprehensive knowledge of food safety standards that should be followed. Specifically for wash station, as I mentioned earlier, they should keep in mind to use proper equipment, easy to clean and disinfect material, use clean water, have an efficient design to allow proper drainage, and to make sure, and this is really important, that the person or the worker is properly trained in food safety. For this purposes, UConn Extension has worker training videos that explain step by step what should be done to maintain food safety.
I know you just mentioned resources. What are some of the places people should be going to learn more about? So any books, online websites, whatever you think is best.
There are many extension programs that provide a lot of information. The Produce Safety Alliance website is a plethora of information of the FDA rule itself. And the New England Center to Advance Food Safety, which is NECAFS, they also have resources for training farm workers. They address wash stations, how to properly wash, avoid cross-contamination, training, cleaning and sanitation practices. All of that is resources available at NECAPS, especially it's in the Food Safety Clearinghouse. In addition, there are many do-it-yourself wash station examples at the UConn Food Safety website, which is through UConn Extension, and the extension websites of other states, and on YouTube as well.
So I'm thinking about farms that are diversified, that maybe have livestock as well as produce, and how people might go from working with the animals to coming into the wash station. So what are things people should keep in mind to avoid cross-contamination?
The first thing they can do is avoid dirty area before coming to the clean area. So the flow of people is important, like I mentioned earlier. So if your worker has to go to both these areas, the same worker has to attend to the livestock and come to the wash station, train them well and make sure that they go first to the clean area, which is the wash station, and then from there to the livestock area. I think that's one way of avoiding contamination. Second method is, I already mentioned it, you have to train your workers properly. So they need to know that they should not come in dirty boots to a clean area. So they need to be trained in change of boots, change of clothing if required, proper PPE, so anything contaminated should be removed. Hands should be washed properly before they come to the wash station. So those are some of the ways to avoid that kind of cross-contamination at farm.
And so in regards to water, so if people are irrigating their fields with surface water or other kinds of water, what should they be keeping in mind when that is coming in from the field to their wash station and the water that's there?
Like I mentioned, definitely for post-harvest wash water, that's the water you're using to wash your produce, the generic E. coli has to be 0 or not detectable. So if you are using surface water or well water for washing, you have to treat it and test to make sure that it has no detectable generic E. coli. With respect to irrigation water, if you're still using like pond water, surface water, or well water, that update has not been finalized yet by the FDA, but it's soon coming. And more recently, we did a water webinar which answered all the questions that we could answer at this point without the rule being finalized. So definitely that resource can be accessed for more questions on irrigation water and how to use it.
Perfect. Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time and for answering all these questions. I think it's going to be really great for other beginning farmers. And so all of the resources that Indu mentioned, we're going to have below the video, so check those out.